Kids, you used to torment me every way you could think of. You can't do that anymore. Is it Richard? If you must know, I'm going away because I can't stand living in this house any longer.
What if America's sweethearts were hiding the darkest family secrets imaginable? Hollywood's golden age wasn't just about glamour and box office magic. Behind those perfect smiles and carefully crafted publicity photos lurked family scandals so explosive that studios spent millions burying them forever. Gable. Clark Gable wasn't just the king of Hollywood, he was also a master of keeping royal secrets. In 1935, while filming The Call of the Wild, Gable and devoutly Catholic co-star Loretta Young began an affair that would create one of Tinseltown's most elaborate cover-ups. When Young became pregnant, both stars faced career destruction in an era where unmarried motherhood was social poison. Young's solution was brilliantly twisted. She disappeared from Hollywood for months, claiming a mysterious illness, gave birth in secret, then placed her own daughter in an orphanage. Later, she adopted the child, naming her Judy Lewis. For decades, Young maintained this fiction while Gable never acknowledged his biological daughter. The resemblance was undeniable. Judy had Gable's distinctive ears, but when questioned, Young would dismiss it as coincidence. The truth remained buried until 1994, when Judy finally confronted her mother at age 59. Young broke down and admitted everything, revealing how the Catholic Church and MGM had orchestrated the entire deception. Studio fixers had arranged the fake adoption papers, coached Young on her cover story, and even provided a doctor who would falsify medical records. The emotional toll was devastating. Judy grew up confused about her identity. Gable lived with the guilt of abandoning his child, and Young carried the shame until her dying day. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford crafted the perfect image of devoted motherhood, adopting 4 children and showcasing her disciplined family life in glossy magazine spreads. But her eldest daughter, Christina, would later expose the horrifying reality in her explosive memoir, Mommy Dearest, published just 1 year after Crawford's death when the star could no longer control the narrative. Christina's accounts painted Crawford as a violent alcoholic who subjected her children to brutal beatings and psychological torture. The infamous "no wire hangers" incident became a symbol of Crawford's unhinged perfectionism, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. Christina described being awakened at midnight for surprise cleanliness inspections, having her hair chopped off as punishment, and enduring beatings so severe they left lasting scars. What made the revelations even more disturbing was the discovery that Crawford's youngest children were allegedly adopted through Georgia Tan, a notorious baby broker later exposed for running an illegal child trafficking ring. While Crawford likely didn't know about Tan's criminal activities, it added another layer of darkness to her maternal legacy. Crawford's younger daughters disputed Christina's claims, creating a bitter family divide that lasted decades. The memoir became a best-selling book, and later a cult classic film, forever destroying Crawford's carefully constructed image as the ideal Hollywood mother. Critics called it either brave truth-telling or vicious revenge, but nobody could ignore the shocking contrast between Crawford's public persona and the alleged private reality of abuse and control. Tracy. Spencer Tracy presented himself as a devoted Catholic family man, but behind the scenes he was living a double life that would have destroyed his career if exposed. While married to Louise Treadwell since 1923, Tracy began a passionate 26-year affair with Katharine Hepburn in 1941 that became Hollywood's worst-kept secret among insiders. The relationship began on the set of Woman of the Year and continued until Tracy's death in 1967. What made this scandal particularly complex was Tracy's refusal to divorce his wife due to his strict Catholic beliefs, leaving Hepburn in permanent limbo as the other woman. Hepburn accepted this arrangement, maintaining separate homes and never pushing for marriage or public acknowledgement of their relationship. Studio publicists worked overtime to hide the affair, arranging fake dates for both stars and carefully choreographing public appearances to avoid suspicion. When Tracy and Hepburn appeared together at premieres or Hollywood events, they were always accompanied by other people to maintain the illusion of friendship. The emotional toll was enormous on all involved. Louise Tracy knew about the affair, but stayed silent to protect her husband's career and their son, John, who was born deaf, a condition Tracy blamed on his own sins. Hepburn later revealed she lived in constant fear of exposure, knowing that being labeled a homewrecker would end her career. The affair only became public knowledge after Tracy's death, when Hepburn finally felt free to speak about the love that defined her life, but had to remain hidden for over 2 decades. Crosby. Bing Crosby was America's crooner, the perfect family man who played gentle priests and loving fathers on screen. But his son Gary's 1983 memoir, Going My Own Way, shattered this wholesome image by revealing a father who was allegedly cold, distant, and physically abusive behind closed doors. Gary described a household ruled by fear, where Bing enforced strict military-style discipline, including weekly weigh-ins, rigid schedules, and corporal punishment that crossed into abuse. According to Gary, Bing would beat his sons with a belt for minor infractions and showed little emotional warmth or affection. The contrast between his public persona as the caring father in films like Going My Way and his alleged private behavior was staggering. Two of Gary's brothers, Lindsay and Dennis, confirmed parts of his account, while their half-brother, Nathaniel, from Bing's second marriage, painted a completely different picture of a loving, involved father. This split created a lasting controversy about which version was true. Lindsay Crosby later died by his own hand, with family members citing the trauma of his childhood as a contributing factor. The memoir sparked a national conversation about the reality behind celebrity family images and the pressure on children of famous parents. Critics debated whether Gary's account was accurate testimony or bitter revenge against a father who had disappointed him. Regardless of the truth, the book permanently damaged Bing Crosby's reputation as America's ideal dad, proving that even the most beloved family men could harbor dark secrets that contradicted their carefully crafted public images. Charlie Chaplan. Charlie Chaplan created the beloved tramp character that made audiences worldwide laugh, but off-screen he harbored disturbing secrets about his relationships with very young women that studios worked desperately to downplay and normalize for public consumption. In 1924, the 35-year-old Chaplan became involved with 16-year-old actress Lita Gray, who was cast in his film The Gold Rush. When Gray became pregnant, Chaplan faced potential criminal charges under California's statutory laws. To avoid prosecution, he hastily arranged a secret marriage in Mexico, but this wasn't a romantic rescue. According to Gray's later divorce filings, Chaplan had initially pressured her to undergo an illegal abortion and only married her when she refused. The marriage quickly deteriorated as Chaplan allegedly engaged in multiple affairs while subjecting Gray to emotional abuse and controlling behavior. When Gray filed for divorce in 1927, her 50-page complaint detailed Chaplan's demanding and manipulative treatment. This wasn't an isolated incident. Chaplan had a pattern of pursuing much younger women, often teenagers, throughout his career. His marriage to 18-year-old Una O'Neill, when he was 54, raised eyebrows, though it lasted until his death. Studio publicity departments worked tirelessly to present these relationships as romantic rather than potentially exploitative, minimizing age differences in press releases and crafting narratives about true love conquering all. In today's context, Chaplan's relationships with teenage girls would be viewed as predatory behavior, but the studio system's protection allowed him to continue this pattern while maintaining his reputation as a beloved entertainer. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's childhood was built on a devastating family secret that shaped her entire troubled life. Born Frances Ethel Gum in 1922, Judy's family fled their hometown in Minnesota when she was just 4 years old under mysterious circumstances that she was never told the truth about. The reason for their sudden departure was her father, Frank Gum, who was reportedly gay or bisexual in an era when such orientations could destroy lives. Frank had been caught in inappropriate encounters with young men, and when rumors began spreading through their small town, the family packed up and moved to California under the pretense of seeking better show business opportunities for their daughters. Judy grew up believing they had moved for her career, never learning that their relocation was actually an escape from scandal. Frank's marriage to Ethel was increasingly strained, filled with arguments and separations that left young Judy confused and insecure. While Frank clearly favored Judy and supported her ambitions, their relationship was complicated by his hidden double life and the constant pressure to maintain appearances. When Frank died suddenly, when Judy was only 13, he took many family secrets with him to the grave. Judy's MGM image as the wholesome all-American girl in The Wizard of Oz was built on the foundation of these hidden family struggles. The full story of Frank's secret life wasn't revealed until after Judy's own death, when biographers pieced together the truth. This early experience with family deception and the need to present a false public face may have contributed to Judy's lifelong struggles with identity, relationships, and the addiction issues that eventually claimed her life at age 47. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was Hollywood's ultimate leading man in the 1950s, tall, handsome, and marketed as the ideal bachelor that women across America dreamed of marrying. But Hudson was living the most elaborate lie in Hollywood history, forced to hide his true identity to protect a career that depended on his romantic appeal to female audiences. When rumors about Hudson's private life began threatening to surface in 1955, his agent Henry Wilson arranged a marriage of convenience to Phyllis Gates, Wilson's own secretary. The entire relationship was a carefully orchestrated performance designed to deflect suspicion and preserve Hudson's career. Gates may not have initially known the true nature of the arrangement, but the marriage was doomed from the start. The wedding received massive publicity, with fan magazines celebrating Hudson finally finding true love. Behind the scenes, Hudson continued his relationship with his longtime partner while maintaining the charade of married life. The marriage lasted just 3 years before ending in divorce, having served its purpose of protecting Hudson's image during a crucial period of his career. Hudson spent the rest of his life maintaining this deception, dating women publicly while living privately with male partners. The truth only came out in 1985, when Hudson became one of the first major celebrities to publicly acknowledge having AIDS. His revelation shocked the world and marked a turning point in public awareness of the disease. The disclosure of his long-hidden private life sparked conversations about the pressures gay actors faced in Hollywood's golden age and the elaborate measures they took to protect their careers in an era of widespread discrimination and prejudice. Mary Pickford was known as America's sweetheart, the golden-haired pioneer of silent film who helped found United Artists and won an Oscar. But as she aged, Pickford made a decision that would permanently alter her life in the most tragic way, becoming one of the first Hollywood stars to undergo plastic surgery when the procedures were crude and dangerous. Desperate to maintain her youthful appearance in an industry that discarded aging actresses without mercy, Pickford turned to what was then an experimental procedure, the facelift. In the early days of cosmetic surgery, facelifts were brutal operations that involved simply stretching the skin back and stitching it near the scalp, creating an unnatural, windswept appearance with no subtlety or understanding of long-term effects. The surgery was a disaster that left Pickford unable to smile properly. Her expressions, so vital to her success in the silent film era, were paralyzed and unnatural. The very thing that had made her America's sweetheart, her emotive, expressive face, was now stiff and unreadable. It was a cruel irony that destroyed not just her appearance, but her ability to connect with audiences in the way that had made her famous. Though Pickford had largely retired from acting by the time of her surgery, the damage went far beyond her career. It affected how she saw herself and how she was remembered by the public. She became increasingly reclusive, hiding from cameras and avoiding public appearances. Her pioneering attempt to fight aging through surgery instead became a cautionary tale about the dangers of vanity and the primitive state of early cosmetic procedures that would later become routine in Hollywood. Tierney was one of Hollywood's most elegant stars, famous for her roles in Laura and Heaven Can Wait. But behind her glamorous image lay a family tragedy so heartbreaking that she kept it hidden from the public for decades, fearing the backlash and judgment that would destroy her career. In 1943, while pregnant with her first child, Tierney contracted German measles after a fan who had broken quarantine at a military hospital, specifically to meet her, unknowingly infected the actress. The consequences were devastating. Tierney's daughter Daria was born with severe disabilities including deafness, partial blindness, and developmental delays that would require lifelong care. Fearing that the public would blame her for her daughter's condition, Tierney and her husband Oleg Cassini made the difficult decision to place Daria in a private institution, a choice that was kept completely secret from the press and fans. Tierney's guilt over this decision haunted her for the rest of her life, contributing to severe mental health struggles that required multiple hospitalizations and electroshock therapy treatments. Years later, Tierney learned the devastating truth about how her daughter's disabilities had occurred. At a Hollywood party, she met the same fan who had broken quarantine to see her during the war. The woman cheerfully mentioned their meeting, apparently unaware that she had been carrying German measles at the time and had infected Tierney. The actress never revealed this connection to the fan, carrying the knowledge silently while struggling with overwhelming guilt and grief. This personal tragedy inspired Agatha Christie's novel, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, though few people connected it to Tierney's real life until she revealed the story in her 1979 autobiography. Rita Hworth Rita Hworth became the definitive American love goddess, but the woman who captivated audiences in Gilda began life as Margarita Carmen Cancino, daughter of Spanish dancer Eduardo Cancino. What the public never knew was that her transformation into a Hollywood icon was built on escaping a childhood of exploitation and abuse. Eduardo forced his daughter to perform as his dance partner from age 12. Touring seedy casinos and frontier towns where a young girl performing sensual dances attracted the wrong kind of attention. During these tours, Rita endured unspeakable abuse at the hands of her own father, a devastating secret she only revealed years later to her second husband, Orson Welles. When Columbia Pictures decided to reinvent her as Rita Hworth, the transformation went far beyond changing her name and hair color. Her naturally dark hair was dyed auburn, and her hairline was painfully altered through electrolysis to appear less Latin. The studio fabricated a more acceptable background that downplayed her Spanish heritage and completely erased any mention of her traumatic childhood. While audiences were enchanted by the sensual confidence Hworth displayed on screen, she privately battled crippling insecurity and a pattern of destructive relationships that stemmed directly from her childhood trauma. "They go to bed with Gilda and wake up with me," she once lamented, revealing the painful disconnect between her glamorous screen persona and her damaged real self. Despite becoming one of Hollywood's most iconic stars, Hworth never escaped the psychological scars of her hidden past. Her struggles with alcoholism and her 5 failed marriages were all connected to the abuse she had suffered as a child, secrets that the studio system helped her bury but could never help her heal from. Merlo Oberon. Merlo Oberon captivated audiences with her exotic beauty in films like Wuthering Heights, but her entire Hollywood career was built on an elaborate lie about her identity that she maintained until her death. The actress lived in constant terror that the truth about her background would be discovered and destroy everything she had worked for. Born Estelle Merle O'Brien Thompson in Bombay, India in 1911, Oberon was the daughter of a 12-year-old mixed-race mother and her British employer. The reality of her birth was even more disturbing, as her biological mother was the victim of assault by her own stepfather. To protect the young girl from this horrific truth, she was raised believing her grandmother was her mother, and her actual mother was her older sister. When Oberon became a star, the studio created a completely fictitious background, claiming she was from Tasmania, Australia. This location was specifically chosen because its records had been destroyed in a fire, making verification impossible. She maintained this deception throughout her entire career, even refusing to visit Australia until late in her career when she feared exposure might occur. The deception required constant vigilance and painful sacrifices. As she aged, Oberon underwent expensive and painful skin treatments and required specialized lighting to conceal her mixed-race complexion. Even her husbands and children weren't told the truth about her heritage. This wasn't mere vanity but survival. In an era of strict racial boundaries, the revelation of her true background would have ended her career instantly. Her cinematographer husband even invented special lighting equipment called the Obi light to help conceal her skin tone on camera, equipment that became standard in Hollywood while hiding its original racist purpose. Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis was the beloved comedy king and the face of the Muscular Dystrophy Association, raising millions for Jerry's kids while presenting himself as a caring father figure to America. But Lewis allegedly had a daughter he never acknowledged, a woman who struggled in poverty while he enjoyed fame and fortune, creating one of Hollywood's most hypocritical family scandals. Susan Minoret was reportedly born from a brief affair Lewis had in the 1950s during his partnership with Dean Martin. Despite bearing a striking resemblance to the comedian, including his distinctive facial features and expressions, Lewis refused to acknowledge her as his daughter or provide any support throughout her difficult life. Susan grew up hearing whispers and rumors about her famous father, but received no recognition or financial assistance from Lewis. She made multiple attempts to contact him over the years, hoping for some acknowledgement or relationship, but Lewis consistently refused to meet with her or take a paternity test that could have resolved the question definitively. The contrast between Lewis's public persona and private actions was particularly stark. While he spent decades raising money for children with disabilities and was celebrated for his charitable work, his alleged daughter struggled with Crohn's disease and lived in poverty, unable to afford proper medical treatment. The situation became even more bitter when Lewis's will was revealed after his death, showing that he had excluded his 6 legitimate sons from his first marriage from his inheritance, leaving his estate to his second wife and their daughter. The case highlighted the cruel irony of a man who built his reputation on caring for children while allegedly abandoning his own. Whether or not Susan was truly his biological daughter, Lewis's refusal to acknowledge her or even meet with her painted him as callous and hypocritical, tarnishing his legacy as America's beloved funny man who supposedly cared about all children. John Wayne. John Wayne was more than an actor. He was an American archetype who embodied rugged masculinity and frontier courage. But the Duke's iconic image was carefully constructed through surgical enhancement, artificial aids, and elaborate deceptions that kept his insecurities hidden from adoring fans who believed he was the ultimate tough guy. By the late 1940s, Wayne had begun wearing a toupee in every film, a secret the studios guarded fiercely to maintain his virile image. As he aged, Wayne's vanity about his appearance led him to undergo a series of plastic surgeries in 1969, just before filming The Undefeated. The procedures included a facelift, eyelid surgery, and neck lift to tighten sagging skin and maintain his leading man appearance. Wayne also wore lifts in his shoes throughout his later career to maintain his imposing 6'4" image as his spine compressed with age. The lifts added 3 inches to his height, ensuring he could still tower over other actors and maintain the physical presence that was crucial to his screen persona. Camera angles and staging were carefully planned to hide these artificial enhancements while preserving the illusion of natural masculine superiority. The surgeries created an oddly artificial appearance that fans noticed but couldn't quite identify. Wayne's face became tighter and less expressive, giving him an almost mask-like quality in his later films. His daughter Maria later revealed the enormous pressure her father felt to maintain his perfect image, noting how the Hollywood system didn't allow for natural aging or human vulnerability. Wayne's final film, The Shootist, ironically cast him as a dying gunslinger, art imitating life as Wayne himself was battling terminal cancer while trying to maintain the facade of invincible strength that had defined his career. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman was the epitome of wholesomeness to American audiences, beloved for playing a nun in The Bells of St. Mary's and the noble Ilsa in Casablanca. Her image as the antithesis of typical Hollywood glamour made her enormously popular, which set the stage for one of the most dramatic falls from grace in entertainment history. In 1949, while still married to her first husband, Bergman traveled to Italy to work with director Roberto Rossellini on Stromboli. They fell passionately in love, and Bergman became pregnant with Rossellini's child while still legally married to another man. When news of the affair and pregnancy broke, the public reaction was vicious and unprecedented in its intensity. Bergman was denounced from the floor of the United States Senate, where Colorado Senator Edwin Johnson called her a powerful influence for evil and Hollywood's apostle of degradation. Churches organized boycotts of her films, fan mail turned to hate mail overnight, and the backlash was so severe that Bergman was effectively exiled from Hollywood for 7 years. The punishment far exceeded any reasonable response by modern standards, but it reflected the moral expectations placed on female stars, especially those like Bergman, who had been marketed as symbols of virtue and purity. What made the scandal particularly notable was that male stars routinely engaged in similar behavior without facing such consequences, highlighting the glaring double standard of the era. Bergman remained in Europe, married Rossellini after obtaining a divorce, and had 3 children with him, including daughter Isabella Rossellini, who later became a famous actress. Her greatest sin in the public's eyes wasn't adultery, but failing to match the pure image that Hollywood had created for her. The industry had built her up as a saint, and when she proved to be human, the fall was catastrophic and unforgiving. Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper was the embodiment of American masculinity and moral strength, a married Catholic family man who played heroes with unwavering integrity. But his secret affair with Patricia Neal, 25 years his junior, led to a pregnancy and forced abortion that revealed the dark side of studio power and the devastating personal cost of maintaining Hollywood's moral facade. The affair began in 1949 when Cooper and Neal met filming The Fountainhead. Despite being married to socialite Veronica "Rocky" Cooper, Gary began a passionate relationship with the young actress that studios worked desperately to keep hidden from the press through carefully orchestrated public appearances and fake dating arrangements. In 1950, the situation became critical when Neil became pregnant with Cooper's child. An unmarried pregnancy could have ended Neil's career instantly, while revealing Cooper's infidelity would have shattered his wholesome image and destroyed his box office appeal. Under enormous pressure from Cooper and facing the reality of her impossible situation, Neil made the agonizing decision to undergo an illegal abortion. Cooper arranged the dangerous procedure, which Neil later described as the saddest thing that ever happened to me and her greatest regret. The emotional aftermath was devastating for both parties. Neil suffered severe depression following the abortion, while Cooper, a devout Catholic, was tormented by guilt over his role in ending the pregnancy. The situation escalated when Cooper's wife, Rocky, discovered the affair and allegedly confronted Neil directly, threatening to destroy her career if the relationship continued. Eventually, Cooper ended the affair and recommitted to his marriage, even undergoing a religious recommitment ceremony. Neil, heartbroken and traumatized, temporarily left Hollywood for Broadway to escape the painful memories. This episode remained largely unknown for decades, only becoming public in the 1980s when Neil began speaking openly about the relationship and its tragic conclusion in interviews and her autobiography. These family secrets reveal how Hollywood's golden age was built on carefully constructed lies that protected careers at the cost of human happiness. From forced abortions to hidden children, from fake marriages to covered-up abuse, the studio system's control was absolute and often cruel. Which of these shocking revelations surprised you most? Do you think modern celebrities face the same pressure to hide their family truths, or has social media made such elaborate deceptions impossible? Drop your thoughts below and tell me which Hollywood family secret you think was the most damaging to those involved.